G'day and welcome to ReDriven. Now, if you listen to Honda fans around the world, this, the CL9 Accord Euro, or the Acura TSX for our North American viewers, is one of the most underrated cars on the used market. But of course they're going to say that because they're Honda fans. But as we've seen in the comments sections for many of our videos, we found that many fans of particular cars can be overly biased. I'm even guilty of that. So, which is it? Are the Honda fans right? Is this an absolute gem of a car? Or is it just some old sedan that you're best to ignore? What actually goes wrong with them? What do they like to drive and live with on a daily basis? What do they cost to own and maintain? And most importantly, should you buy one? Let's find out. Now, I should mention before we get deep into this video, in this video we are going to be focusing on the Australian variants of the Accord Euro, which, yes, we know in North America it is the Acura TSX, but if you're not watching this from Australia, don't freak out or panic, because everything we're going to be going over should relate to Accord Euros and Acura TSXs in your local market. Also, to keep this video, as objective as we possibly could, we've reached out to multiple Honda and Accord owners groups. We've spoken to Honda specialist mechanics and technicians. We've trawled through customer satisfaction surveys and reliability reports and online forums. So this video is basically, it's the culmination of all of that stuff. Also, I must say, Honda have truly phenomenal fans. We've joined a whole bunch of owners groups to do the research on this video, and they have been incredibly helpful with the research for this video. So look, if you're buying one of these or you own one of these, join a Honda owners group. Guys, thank you. Okay, so the Accord Euro, it landed on Australian shores way back in 2003, that's nearly 20 years ago. I remember when these things came out. That's depressing. That makes me feel really old. Anyway, it was available in primarily two different trim levels, both sharing the same mechanical platform. But for more of an overview, here's me doing a voiceover over some B-roll montage that Sam has thrown together. Mechanically, all Accord Euros of this 2003 to 2008 CL9 generation featured a 2.4-litre four-cylinder engine featuring Honda's iVTEC intelligent variable valve timing control system. That's just basically Honda jargon for providing really good fuel economy, but power when you need it. Transmission-wise, you have the choice between the rare and desirable 6-speed manual or Honda's Honda-matic 5-speed automatic transmission. This automatic transmission is actually different to normal automatics, but Jim, our resident mechanic, will explain more about this later in the video. Either way, power is sent through the front wheels. As far as the variants go, Australia received simply the Accord Euro as the base model and a higher spec branded luxury, while a sport, tourer and limited edition variants, they made occasional appearances during the life cycle. The Accord Euro received a mid-life refresh late in 2005 called the Series 2. This update consisted of a subtle facelift, distinguished by new bumpers, grille and alloy wheel designs, with a refresh to the exterior lighting as well, while inside there were new higher quality wood and metallic materials, plus a boost to the levels of equipment offered. Now look, obviously we love to go over every specific detail of every model and special edition and all that sort of stuff, but if we did that in this video, it would go for hours, it'd get really boring. But the thing is, we have gathered all of that information and we've jammed it in our incredibly handy and completely free ReDriven cheat sheets. Our cheat sheets are invaluable as they provide a full breakdown of the car's model range, its common problems, what you need to look out for before handing over your hard-earned cash, how much of that cash you should be handing over, and so much more. Check it out at redriven.com or in the link below. Now guys, if you are already an Accord Euro expert or you own one of these things and you've noticed in this video that we've missed something really big, something major, please let us know in those comments. We're going to do our best to cover as much as we can about the car, but yeah, if we miss something really big, please let us know in the comments. Okay, so how's the exterior? Well look, from a design aspect, I'm going to make a massive statement here. This thing, it was a game changer. What I mean by that is before the Accord Euro came along, there was never any doubt about, the engineering excellence or build quality of Honda vehicles. And even though Honda was kind of recognized as being the most European of the Japanese brands, it was still pretty obvious that before this, all Hondas, they looked and felt Japanese. But it wasn't until the Accord Euro landed that the looks and feel felt like a European car, just mated with the engineering excellence and build quality of a Japanese car. Probably hence why it's called an Accord Euro. Anyway, looks-wise, personally, I feel like this thing is aging incredibly well. It still looks great. Some of these have been completely ruined by, cheap aftermarket body kits and dodgy wheels. in saying that, lowering it just a little bit and putting some really quality aftermarket wheels on it can kind of toughen it up. But overall, I think it's aging brilliantly. What do you guys think? Do you like the way it looks? Let us know in those comments. Now, as far as what to watch out for or look out for as far as the exterior goes, look, because these are getting really affordable, we'll get to what they cost later, and because they're really enjoyable to drive, and we'll get to what they're like to drive later, and because they're being purchased by a lot of younger drivers, they are quite susceptible to accident damage. So yeah, check for crash damage and dodgy repair work. So look, it's critical to do all the usual used car checks. When you first look at the car, look at the paintwork. Does the paint match, obviously, in color and texture between the panels? Look at all these panel gaps all around the car. The panel gaps should all match up. Look at any of the plastics, like in the gap around the plastics, do they all match up? This is really important. Look under the wheel arches, look in like all the air vents and pop the bonnet and look for any signs of spray paint overspray. If you see overspray and the panel gaps are bad and the paint doesn't match, not a good car. Look, in saying that, if it has been resprayed, it's not necessarily because of an accident. You know, this thing is nearly 20 years old. The paint doesn't really like our harsh Australian sun, so maybe it's just been resprayed to look good again. But yeah, do your absolute best to find out if it has had an accident. Just check the car's history. Also, make sure you check the condition of the wheels and the tires. Like some light gutter rash on the rim of the wheel, that's kind of to be expected. Car's getting old. But if there's any big chunks out of the wheels, could be a sign that the owner is just a really shit driver. Next up, make sure you check the actual wear pattern on the tire. If the tires are really worn on the edges here, could be a sign that the owner or driver of this car really likes cornering very, very hard. If the wear pattern is all over the place, it might be simply a sign that the car needs a wheel alignment, or at absolute worst, it might have suspension damage. Basically, make sure it has quality tires and the wear pattern is even. If it hasn't got quality tires and the wear pattern is uneven, not a good sign. Now, as far as what commonly goes wrong, like, you know, exterior faults and, you know, everything that goes wrong with these things, we'll cover those shortly. Okay, so how's the interior? Well, like the exterior, Honda really stepped up their game here. Before this car, most Japanese car interiors felt pretty cheap and plasticky. Even like the sublime Honda NSX actually shared some switchgear with the base model Civic at the time. But this, and like considering it's nearly 20 years old, it's super bloody impressive. The ergonomics are spot on, like the driving position is great. It hasn't got as much adjustability as say a lot of modern cars, but I still feel perfectly situated in here. Everything that you need to touch is right there. I can't get over it. Like even the switchgear, like all these buttons on the steering wheel feel great. Listen to this. Like they feel nice to use. Every button feels bloody good, like amazing. And look, the overall wear and tear, I'm gonna be honest, we may have lucked out here. This is possibly one of the best conditioned Accord Euros in the country because this still feels like a new car. Like the leather is still soft and supple. Even the steering wheel, like considering the age, this hasn't gone too glossy. All the plastics, I don't know, I doubt this is actually real timber, but like everything feels great. Even like the gear shift boot, that feels soft and nice. Like, okay, there's not a lot of squidge. Everything's a bit hard and, you know, scratchy plastic, but I can't get over the condition of it. It's incredible. In saying that, but Accord Euros that have a leather interior, if they haven't been cared for, like this one, the leather can crack. They're renowned for cracking and peeling. Okay, in the back seat, I'm exactly 29 centimeters taller than toddler-sized Formula One driver and Honda ambassador Yuki Tsunoda. This is in my driving position, and it's not too bad. Like my knees are scraping against the back of the seat there. My feet are a little bit cramped. The comfort part, these seats are super, super comfortable, and the glass house is quite spacious. So while my knees are up against the back of the seat, weirdly, I don't feel too cramped in here. It's not too bad. As far as wear and tear goes, in this particular car, I might be the first person that's ever sat in the back of this car because honestly, this is a new car. Like the leather, it's new. It feels and smells new back here. Even the carpet, it's just spotless. Yeah, no wear and tear in the back of this one. Okay, so how's the tech? Well, look, obviously considering the age of the car, the tech standard isn't fantastic. Don't expect Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, anything like that. In saying that, all of that is relatively easy fitted as an aftermarket option. But for an overview of what tech you can expect in the Accord Euro, here's me doing another voiceover. The Accord Euro will feature a pretty decent 6-speaker sound system with a 6-stack CD player, dual-zone climate control air conditioning, cruise control, multi-function steering wheel controls, remote central locking, power windows and mirrors, a trip computer, and an alarm and immobiliser. But for all these specific details of which Accord Euro gets what levels of tech, just jump on ReDriven.com and check out that cheat sheet or click in the link in the description below. So is it practical? Well, in the boot, yes, this is incredibly spacious, especially for the size of this car. This opening as well isn't too bad. There is a bit of a load lip, so when you're putting things in and out, you've got to kind of lift it in and over into here, but really good. Oh, also the rear seats, they fold down. There's 60/40 fold seats, so you can kind of chuck a snowboard through or anything through. And practicality in the second row, you've got a spot here specifically for your ReDriven Honda Accord Euro script. There's 2 of those. You've got cup holders here in the armrests, which is quite good. There's no door pockets of any sort, but there is an ashtray. Gross. And practicality up front. So you've got some door bins, but they're not very wide, so you're not going to fit a water bottle down there. You've got a spot up here for life's filth. Good news is, but Honda have kind of curved all the exterior bits, so it's super easy to clean out. There's a little bit of a storage piece up here for more things and stuff. There's a spot in here which is huge, and it holds a phone perfectly, and this car was around before those phones were. There's an ashtray and a spot for cigarette butts there. Gross. There's a spot for sunglasses just up here. There's a good sized little storage spot here with its own little shelf, and this armrest slides back and forth, and there's storage here. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hang on a sec, there were cup holders in the back, but there's no cup holders up front. Well, there are. Look at this. Push this little button, that flips down, and you've got cup holders. Brilliant. And a pretty small glove box. Okay, now what goes wrong with these things? Well, we're going to be covering the mechanical stuff in a little bit, but let's start with the exterior. Okay, so first up, as we just alluded to earlier, the paint, it can fade, especially red. Actually, red's pretty bad for fading if it hasn't been cared for. If it has been cared for, it's going to end up looking like this. If it hasn't been cared for, it actually can like peel and crack and fall off. Not good. Also, a full respray, like a proper respray of a car this size, is going to cost many thousands of dollars. The other alternative is actually just getting the car vinyl wrapped. But a quick warning, if you choose to get it vinyl wrapped in some kind of flip-flop paint effect or some kind of glittery, flamboyant wrap, you're going to look like a wanker. Next up, due to a faulty gasket, there are reports that these headlights, especially on humid days, can fill up with condensation or moisture. The good news is OEM replacement headlights or even aftermarket headlights aren't too expensive, and they're super easy to find online. There are a few reports of squeaky sounding windows thanks to these weather strips not being installed correctly. There are some rare reports that the door locking mechanisms and the central locking can fail, but guys, that's sporadic. There are hardly any reports of that. Not common. And finally, for the exterior problems, there are some reports that the front bar can sag, but again, we wouldn't call that a common issue. Okay, so inside, what are the common faults and problems? Well, look, honestly, the good news is there's not too many. Like, as we mentioned, the leather, if it hasn't been cared for, it can crack and go a bit gross. Also, there are really rare sporadic reports that some of the switchgear can get faulty, but that is few and far between. However, and this is a bloody weird one, there are a few reports of copious amounts of ants being found around and in the car. This is obviously going to vary depending on where you're located and watching this, but apparently ants find whatever is coated on the motherboard of the ECU absolutely delicious, and they start devouring it, and that can cause some wiring and weird issues like lights flashing and weird stuff going on like that. Really strange, pretty rare, but kind of entertaining. Now, before we get into mechanically what can go wrong with these things, I've got to ask a favor. Can you please hit the like, subscribe, and bell buttons if you're enjoying this video? And if you're enjoying what we do here at ReDriven, can you share ReDriven as much as you can? Because the more you do of that stuff, the more of these videos we can make. And we'd love to keep making these videos. Now, mechanically, what goes wrong with the Accord Euro? Look, I'd love to tell you, but I'm not qualified to because I'm not a mechanic. But Jim is.
The older ones of these on the market now are generally at a price point where people are starting to worry less about regular servicing. Although they are still surprisingly reliable when they're neglected, you've got to make sure it's got a good service history. If they've missed too many services, they can have real problems with oil consumption, and extreme cases they can have problems with timing chains and camshaft and valve train problems. Regardless of service history, we do occasionally see problems with our power steering pumps, pretty common actually, but not eye-wateringly expensive. Occasionally we also see VTEC solenoid actuators, again not hugely expensive. Other than that, engine-wise, pretty good. The transmissions too are pretty reliable. In the autos, there are a few complaints of harsh shifting and jerky operation. And it isn't an expensive fix, but it is an extremely unlikely and uncommon problem. Overall, compared to other cars around this price and age, they are extremely reliable, with most owners never really having any serious mechanical issues.
So is it safe? Well, look, the Accord Euro has a really good level of road holding and braking and handling and steering ability. So if you know what you're doing, they're pretty safe. Unfortunately, many drivers don't know what they're doing. Plus, the Accord Euro scored itself a 4 out of 5-star ANCAP safety rating, but that was all the way back in 2003. But for an overview of what safety equipment and technology that you can expect, here's me doing another voiceover, but this time I'm going to do it like I'm a radio announcer on like a radio station that specializes in classical music.
Hi there, you're listening to ReDriven Classic FM. The Accord Euro will come fitted with such fabulous safety features as anti-lock brakes with brake assist and electronic brake force distribution, electronic stability control and traction control, as well as boasting an impressive array of airbags, including front and side airbags, while the luxury had the added protection of curtain airbags.
So is it safe? Well, it's somewhat kind of safe-ish. But look, for all the specific details of which Accord Euro gets what levels of safety, just jump on redriven.com and check out that cheat sheet. So, what's it like to drive? Well, after nearly 20 years, it's incredible. Like, it's sublime. Like, there are no rattles, there's no squeaks, there's no weird noises. It's silent. Even the engine note, when you're giving it a bit, we'll get to the engine in a second, even it sounds good. Like, it's just, I can't get over how good this is. Now, thanks to the independent suspension, the handling is fantastic. Like, it handles beautifully, but it's not like performance car where it's like, super harsh or, too bumpy or jolty. It's actually quite cruisy. At normal speeds, I'm not going to say luxurious, but it's getting there. But the minute you get up it and actually start giving it some beans through the corners, it actually gets more involving. It's just, again, great. Like, even the steering feels perfectly weighted at all times. There's great communication. It feels like obviously connected to the front wheels where some other cars just don't. But in terms of the steering, if you are test driving one of these, just make sure you give it lock-to-lock turns and while driving, because if it's inconsistent in feel or if it clunks or makes any noises, it might be an issue with the power steering pump, because all of these CL9 Accord Euros, they do have issues with their power steering systems. Now the engine, look, this thing's a gem. It's so smooth. The pulling power is great. It's got more torque than a lot of Type or naturally aspirated Type R models because of the larger displacement. But even when you do rev it out, it's still satisfying to actually rev it out. So it does the best of both worlds. You've got more torque than a Type R model. Okay, it might not have the screaming top end of a Type R, but for like a normal car, for not a performance car, like you give it the beans, like that's so good. But now again, if you are test driving one of these, make sure you put it under load and listen out for any like ticking or tapping sort of noises, because that could be a sign that the timing chain tensioner is on its way out. It's funny, and maybe this is a uniquely Australian thing, but here we kind of feel like sedans need to be rear or all-wheel drive. Front-wheel drive sedans, they just don't get the same levels of adoration as rear and all-wheel drive cars. Front-wheel drive cars, it seems like they're okay as long as it's a hot hatch. Front-wheel drive hot hatch, totally okay. Front-wheel drive sedan, not so much. But here's the funny thing. This car is only it's like that much bigger than a Ford Fiesta ST, which is, one of the current all-time great hot hatches. So a front-wheel drive platform in this kind of suits it. Look, overall, what's it like to drive? This might just be the perfect blend of car. Like, it's torquey and mature enough in its characteristics to be a respectable daily driver. But then when you want to have some fun, you want to get up it, when you do plant that right foot and give it the beans through the corners, it just responds so well. It revs out so nicely. It handles so well. It brakes well. It steers well. Why don't more people buy these or drive these? This is from a driving aspect, this is a superb car. Plus, it's not so fast that you're going to risk losing your license. It's got plenty of get up and go, but again, this is another example of one of those cars that just prove you don't need power and speed to have fun. Pricing here in Australia kicks off from as little as $4,500. Granted, a $4,500 Accord Euro is going to have a hell of a history behind it, but still, that's a fair chunk of car for the money. Other end of the spectrum, you're going to be looking at around about $14,000, but a $14,000 Accord Euro is going to be in like concourse condition with minimal kilometres on it, kind of something like this. This is unbelievable quality. Yeah, between, let's say, $12,000 to $14,000. But talk about market trends dictating the price of used cars, because this thing, when brand new, it was around about $43,000, $44,000, which funnily enough was the exact same price as the equivalent year's Toyota Hilux. Yet on the used market these days, because people seem to be obsessed with owning a 4x4 dual cab ute as their family car, while these things are, averaging at around about $8,000 to $11,000, the equivalent model Hilux is like $25,000 to $30,000. Interesting. And for pricing internationally, here's a graphic. Honda claim a fuel consumption figure of anywhere from 9.1 to 9.4 litres per 100 Ks, obviously depending on if it's a manual or an automatic. Honda offered a 3-year, 100,000 kilometre warranty on all Accord Euros. Now that these are nearly 20 years old, I think that means I don't think any of these have any warranty left. I might have to check that. Servicing is recommended at every 6 months or 10,000 Ks. And look, I know that seems regular, but because these cars are, again, pushing 20 years old and they were built to incredibly close tolerances, it's critical that you get them serviced on time and regularly. And again, look, if you are buying one of these or you own one of these, make sure you join one of the owners groups. I can't tell you how helpful they've been. Owners groups, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Join an owners group. Okay, so should you buy one? Well, yeah, but it depends.
See, thanks to these Accord Euros being so incredibly affordable, there are some owners out there that have a habit of missing services and generally not caring for the car in the manner that it deserves.
But look, unless you're totally okay with spending your weekends and weekday nights fixing all the problems that the previous owner has caused, don't buy that Accord Euro. Just don't buy a sketchy one.
The risk is, if a badly maintained or abused example goes bang, you may potentially end up spending more than what the car is worth just repairing it.
But what if you found a really well cared for example with a perfect service history? That's a whole other story.
Say that the Accord Euro is underrated is a hell of an understatement. Good examples of these cars offer truly incredible value for money. They're immensely enjoyable to drive, yet they don't shout about it with such classy and understated styling. They're practical and comfortable. Considering their age, they're pretty well equipped and relatively safe. And being a Honda, the build quality, reliability, and longevity are arguably class leading.
So should you buy one? Look, again, find a well cared for one, and we can't say this enough, with a thorough and full service history. And it is a massive, massive yes. These things on the used market for what they cost, hugely underrated, absolute bargain. Guys, thank you so much for watching. What did you think of the Accord Euro or the Acura TSX? Let us know in those comments below. And remember, can you please hit those like, subscribe, and bell buttons and share ReDriven as much as you can. The more you do that stuff, the more you share us, the more of these videos we can make. Hopefully that's a good thing. See you guys next time. Bye. Now, if you listen to my arms are doing the wrong thing. Here we go. Now guys, if you are an Accord Euro expert, some say it's common, some don't. That was terrible. What am I gonna say? Okay, in the back seat, I'm exactly 29 centimeters taller than toddler-sized Sorry. Here we go, come on, this is the one. Formula One driver and Honda ambassador, Ambassador, here we go. But what if you found a really well cared for example with a perfect, hell, come on.